All right, guys, we are back down at the cabin. This is going to be part 2 of this boiler hydronic heat system install. And before I get started, I have to fix something I screwed up on. And so when I installed this right here, this is the exhaust. You're supposed to have a 5-inch piece of CPVC with this boiler. And the reason for that is because this can produce a ton of heat. And I have solid core pipe here, which is rated at 140 degrees. The CPVC is rated at 200 degrees. Whether it makes a difference or not, the manual for the NTI boilers calls for a 5-inch piece of CPVC here. They even provided, I missed it. So I want to make sure that I fix this, get this in there. It shouldn't be too bad. I'll just cut this right there. I have a coupler, and then I can just replace this right here. There's a screw there and a screw there, so I can get this up enough that I can get it replaced. So before we get started on everything else, I'm gonna switch this out quick, and then we will get going on the rest of this installation. All right, guys, so I switched that out. It took about 5 minutes. I just cut this off, got a coupler, new 3-to-2 inch reducer, and then I got my CPVC 5-inch section right there. So now I am in compliance with what the instructions say, so we can get on with the rest of this installation. All right, so that's the control box. So we'll have 120 power coming in here, and then 120 power going out to the circulator, and then the thermostat wires come in here from the thermostat, which has the in-floor sensor, and then control wires will go from here to the boiler to tell the boiler when to kick on. Yep, that's right. So one trip is kind of deal. What I've decided to do is keep all of the electrical components on the left side of the boiler, and then any water lines that I need to run up above the rooms and drop into the bathroom stuff, I'll run on the right side. So I'll keep everything kind of neat and tidy. All right, guys, we just made a wire reel out of scrap that we had laying around. So that roll of wire is 1,000 foot, and it probably weighs way over 100 pounds. So this way we can just put a roll on there and it'll unwind it the way it needs to. And we got it right below the box. So we'll start our runs from here and just leave that there. I have to cut these a little bit shorter. Yeah, so ground. I'll go around. Got that in there. Dark. All right, so there's the pump. This will go up. Go in here to the control box. All right, so we have power from the box that comes to there that powers our outlet for the boiler and the fill pump. And then we have power that comes down here to the control box. Right here, that goes out to the pump. So it comes down so that the pump can kick, or the circulator can kick on. And then all the neutral or grounds are hooked together, hooked to the ground back there. That is for mounting my thermostat, so I'll screw that in. In-floor sensor will go straight down, thermostat will go right here. All right, so I'm going to put the floor sensor in right there. I'm gonna use a hammer drill and I'm gonna drill it down into the concrete. You can put a sleeve in the concrete when you're doing prior to your concrete pour, so you'd have a chase. But I found this works really good, just drilling down so that my sensor sits in, the top 2 inches of the concrete slab. I like that because the system will run until that whole slab is superheated, and then it'll shut off. So that's what I like to do. So we're just gonna use a hammer drill down, then we'll slide our sensor in there, and then we will seal this top so it stays in place, and then we'll be good. I put a little wire staple right there so it can't pull out. Then we'll run this up, stick this through this hole. Wire staple that all to the side, and then we can cut off the extra. All right, so in the thermostat directions, it will have different pages for different applications. This is the application I'm going to use. So it's going to be radiant floor heat system based upon the floor temperature sensor. Built-in air sensor is disabled. I never run my floor off an air sensor. That's my personal preference. So this is the wiring diagram that I'm going to use. So I got my sensor that I just installed down below. That will get hooked to these terminals, and then I need basically looks like a 4-wire over to my zone control, which is that guy right there. I only have 2 wires, so I'm gonna have to use some tape to label these so that when you're working on these, it'll have a tag on them. So I'm gonna do that instead of running 3 hours to the store. So one thing that's awesome about BlueRidge's system is they will send a recommended wiring diagram with your system. So this is the setup that I have. I just have 1 circulator, 1 zone. So I'm only gonna have 1 thermostat, but it literally shows you the wires and where they go. Run it through these over here. No. Need more. All right, that'll be good. All right, so we're working along we have a jumper from R to RH1, and then the red goes over to red, the white goes over to white, and then our sensor is down here, right here. So we just need to hook up the away and the C. So I got run another wire. It'd have been awesome if I would have had a 4-wire, but I'm just gonna run another one of these, and then I'll somehow mark the wires so we know what they are. There we go. So what I could do is just put black tape around this. All right, so you can see right here, I wrapped one of the 2 wires with black tape on both ends, both right here and in there. And then on both of the covers, I've marked, you know, black tape. Red is C terminal, white is the away terminal. So I'll be probably the only one ever to work on this, but if somebody else was, they'll at least have directions on what wires go where. If you look on the back of this cover, you'll see this terminal here, and the prongs on that will fit right into this. All right, so we hooked up the XX, which goes to the boiler. You just pull these latches right there. So when you're taking it, when you want to access the back, you just pull these little levers right here, folds down, pull these back here, and you can take that off. And I hook that up to my situation. I have 1 zone, so it's going to go to TT1. This jumper is from the factory. They use this to fire the boiler to make sure it's all working. And so I got to take that off and then hook my XX to these. I did call BlueRidge to verify that. I just want to make sure I was remembering right. So this has to come out, otherwise this boiler will continue to fire because it's making the connection. So we're going to take that out and hook these 2 wires into there. It's kind of like a little door. All right, we have to convert this thing to LP. So there's just 3 tabs you got to pull off. A little flathead screwdriver probably work better than your fingers. So this is the natural gas valve that comes on it. We have to replace this. So we got to disconnect the gas line. Just right here. So this is what we have to replace. It comes with new ones, so we'll set this to the side. Now I got to get these 3 screws out. So there's no... All right, I'm going to remove this nut as well because it says to replace the washers while doing this. So you're going to take this little clip off that was right here, slide this off, and that'll go on the new one. All right, this is the LP, so we're going to line this up. There's a little O-ring, rubber O-ring, so make sure that's still seated. These screws should start really easy. Just make sure you don't force them. Leave them loose until you have all 3 in. And then snug them all up. Then we're going to take this plastic piece here. It's going to go on like so. And then here is the piece that holds that on there. Just a little clip. You can see the little rounded part. That's going to go towards where the gas valve or the gas hooks up. I'm just going to stick this on there like that. Clip it on there. That's how that's going to go. I'm actually going to leave this off until I slide this back on so it can clip on, and then we'll put this clip back on. So got the new washers that came with it. So I'm gonna stick that on there. Make sure I'm lined up. Just gonna leave those kind of loose for now. Got another new one. Slide it in here. When you're doing this, these should go on real easy. It shouldn't be difficult to line up. If it is, then something's wrong. So then we're just gonna finger tighten these. And then we're just gonna give them a little snug. Boot goes back on. Clips on. That clip goes on. And now, the last thing we have to do is we have to do our preliminary adjustment for the model of boiler you have. Perform preliminary adjustment on gas valve throttle screw number 4. It's got an arrow to throttle screw number 4. You pick the unit you have. I have the 110C. And so it says adjust throttle screw number 4 counterclockwise 1/2 turn, 0.5 turns. So I've got an Allen wrench right here. And it's kind of slightly angled down this way, counterclockwise. So I'm going to turn this to right there. All right, guys, so now that I have this converted to LP, the next steps before firing this up is to have a certified tech come in, do a pressure test, and then they can do a combustion test. So what they do is up here on the exhaust, you can see this little port. They have a special tool that they hook up to that, and so as the thing is firing, it'll monitor the CO and CO2, and then based on those readings, they can get this thing firing appropriately so that it is working at maximum efficiency. And so to finish this up, I need to put my mixing valve on here. So I've already got my hot coming out for the potable water. So it will go into the mixing valve here. I'll have cold coming off the main into the mixing valve, and then I'll have the hot coming off, which will go into our manifold, which will be up there. So here's the mixing valve. Just the purpose of this, you can see hot comes in on one side, cold comes in on the other, and then it goes out on the bottom. And so it's got these little connectors. So what I'm going to do is just put on like a 2-inch piece of copper onto each one. This is the only soldering I'll have to do on this whole system. So we'll cut 3 2-inch pieces, get those connected, and then I have push fittings that will connect to there. So all right, so far this is the only soldering I had to do, and with this valve and these fittings, I needed to extend this to get push fittings on there. So got a little filter. Avoided disaster. The outlet. All right, so this is, if you read right here, this is preset at 115 to 120 degrees, so it will not let the water go hotter than that. So just probably pop that off. And then right here, the cap actually has the wrench in it. You can turn that to increase the temperature or decrease the temperature. I'm gonna try to get mine, I mean 115 to 120 is probably a little lower than I would want it. By the time the water gets there, probably set this around 130 to 140 is what I'll do. But we are ready to hook this up. So hot out of the boiler will go in this side, cold will come in from this side, and then the 115 to 120 or whatever you have it set at will come out this side. All right, so to wrap up, video number 2 is we got all of our wiring and controls done. So we got our switching relay right here, which controls basically everything. We have our thermostat in. We have our in-floor sensor in. We're wired to the 1-zone circulator. We're wired into the boiler. We converted this to LP. We have the pressure relief hooked up, ran down, comes down and out here. Same with the pressure relief for our hot water system. And then this is our condensate right here, which I have the hose on, but what I'm gonna have to do is get PVC pipe and run it, attach it to there so this hose can go on the side of it, 90 it over to our drain. And then I completed all of the plumbing over to our mixing valve. And basically this is just protection so you don't get scalding water from the boiler. And then we got it ran over to our water manifold, and I have all of the water lines that we ran underneath the floor hooked up. All right, that is part 2 of this installation of this BlueRidge company hydronic in-floor heat system. When we come back for part 3, the LP company will have the tank hooked up to the cabin. We will get the system filled. We will get a pressure test done. We will get the combustion analysis done. And then we will get this system up and running, and then we can do a final walkthrough of all the components and how this works. But if you guys are interested in these systems, you can check out the link in the description. It will take you to a form that you can fill out to get a quote from BlueRidge Company. But as always, we appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends, and don't stop dreaming.